Hi, my name is Nathan Netz, and I'll be doing a presentation on why Idaho needs to save the salmon. So, the salmon of Idaho are some of the most unique species we have today. They were the most resilient species that has continued to live despite the many years of human issues we have put onto them. Salmon are unique in the way that they will only uh, salmon are unique in the way that they will only swim upstream and reproduce in the rivers and creeks they are from. Uh, The Idaho salmon face some of the biggest trials by having to swim upstream 1,000 miles and are forced to cross over 8 dams along the way. The Idaho salmon swim upstream through the Columbia and the Snake River. Along with this already treacherous task, the some of the salmon swim another 800 miles and 600 feet of elevation just to reach their spawning grounds. This is like into towns of like Salmon, Idaho, or Lewiston, Idaho, which are all the way up north or in the middle of the state. It's a tireless task that has been done for centuries, but today we see less and less salmon, and time is soon going to run out. The issue is a lot of these salmon are not protected, or they are protected in a sense that they're on the endangered species list. But other than that, um, many of the salmon have no other option than to swim upstream and to try to reach their breeding grounds, and many of them die along the way. So jumping into it, the first issue of losing the salmon in Idaho is the fact that they have a major impact on Idaho's economy. Um, Many people, like fishing guides and outfitters, depend on the salmon to make a living. Without them, people's livelihood would be uprooted and taken away from them. The salmon are dependent, or the people are dependent on the salmon and a good number of salmon every year to make sure that they can provide uh, proper guiding trips and proper, materials in their outfitters. But it's already been proven and shown, in especially towns like I bring up Salmon, Idaho again. A lot of their outfitters have had to close, and many of their guides no longer are booking trips due to the fact that there's just not enough salmon around in town or in the creeks in general to want to even go out and push people to go fish when they're not going to catch anything and just make them waste their money. Uh, with that being said, there is also a huge tourist dependency on these salmon as flocks of people come from around the world to not only see but catch some of these amazing fish. Lewiston, Idaho is a good example of this. Their city in general makes a living off of people coming out of from all across the world to go experience not only Idaho's greatness in their its great environment and like what it has to offer, just natural beauty, but catching some of these fish that have come so far and have pushed so long just to make it up to Lewiston. And without that whole whole deal of tourism, the city wouldn't be the same. Like there's gonna lose just tons of business, and it will hurt Lewiston in general and many of the other towns that are around that area. Not only will it hurt the economy, but it also has a very large impact on the native tribes of Idaho and Eastern Oregon and Washington. Um, the native tribes are one of the most affected groups by the loss of salmon, but they don't really have much of a say in what happens. I was reading an article by The Guardian that spent time interviewing people from both the Nez Perce tribe and which is in northern Idaho, and the Utamila, Utamila, the Utamila tribe. I don't really want to pronounce it wrong, but I'm not really too sure how to pronounce it. But both these tribes and the people that were being interviewed from these tribes, we're just discussing how the loss of the salmon would be heartbreaking and devastating. Um, for both tribes, they call themselves salmon people. Uh, the salmon have been around in their tribes and in their history for as long as they can can remember, or basically as long as the tribes have been around. Many of these tribes took took homes along the rivers so they could have the salmon as a necessary source of food and nourishment to survive. Uh, a lot of these tribes, the salmon are more than just a fish, but they're a story, and they have teachings that are along with the stories. And these stories have been told for centuries as the salmon are seen as a traveler and a responsibility. The one story from the Utamila tribe um, is the story goes that the salmon's responsibility would be to travel through the waters, ingesting food in order to provide nourishment to humans. In exchange, the tribe was given the sacred duty of taking care of the salmon and honoring them through prayer and ceremony. And that's just one example of how important the salmon are to these tribes and how important they are to just the history of Idaho in general. And like, I mean, I already mentioned the economic part of it, but like it goes deeper than that due to the fact that just Idaho has such deep roots within these salmon. For the Nez Perce, the Nez Perce salmon, the Nez Perce people, salmon have been a way of life. Catching, storing food, or teaching your son the importance of patience and calculated decisions through the process of netting. Um, you know, it'd just be taking away something they've known for years and something that has been around in their tribes for centuries. uh, it would have a much larger impact on, especially not only the people that depend on it for their livelihood, but for the people that only know salmon just due to the fact of it's it is something they've been born into, and it's something the fish themselves is more ingrained into their culture than say the newborn kid, just due to the fact that how important the salmon are. Going off of that, the environmental loss or the environmental issues that the loss of salmon would also have on Idaho is pretty great. And the environmental issues that are causing the loss of salmon are also a very big issue. Um, well, first of all, the environmental loss of salmon would impact all the ecosystems that salmon are relevant in. The fact that they swim upstream and go to these rural areas is pretty large in just basic ecosystem knowledge. The salmon, they get eaten by predators like birds or bears and whatever, coyotes or mountain lions in Idaho. And once these salmon get taken out of the river and uh, drop somewhere else, they help fertilize the forests and help bring um, just more just a natural balance to the ecosystems. The main issue with the environment is man-made processes that are destroying the population of the salmon in Idaho. Um, as you can see here, the picture of these four dams are the main on the lower Snake in eastern Washington are the main issue that are hurting the salmon population. The Ice Harbor, excuse me, the Lower Monumental, the Little Goose, and the Lower Granite dams are all very, very closely spaced and are a hard thing for these salmon to get over after they had already swam about 1,000 miles upriver in the Columbia. It's just another process for them to have to try and fight, and it doesn't really go too well for them at times. um, these four dams, they do help farmers gain irrigation and help local economies save money on power. They also help being able to get like barge materials into Idaho. Lewiston's actually has a barge, like a harbor and it is due to these 4 dams being able to access the Snake River with a barge. Um, and that makes for cheaper, you know, cheaper process. Like it's a cheaper process to get goods to northern Idaho or central Idaho, and cheaper process to help access stuff into Idaho, and especially help farmers like move grain across country or move grain to wherever they need. Um, the only issue is these 4 dams, they no longer really serve as much of a help, especially on like the save money on power type thing, because Idaho doesn't typically use all 4 dams anymore for that reason. So they're no longer as much of a help as they are destruction and destroyer of the population. Congressman Mike Simpson has put together a $33 billion plan that will take out the dams, but still keep all the benefits that the dams provide for others that need it. The plan is integrated with ideas to help farmers, help local tribes, and help local governments keep their power ratings lower. I guess I don't know if ratings is the right word I'm looking for there, but yeah, ratings. And the plan is, ingrained with ideas that would cut out all 4 dams and boost the population of the salmon. Um, he's brought it to the U.S. Congress multiple times, and it has been shot just only for it to get shot down. Not many people are really trying to help the salmon besides Mike Simpson, and it's kind of sad to see. Since the foundation of the dams, the sockeye population has fallen from 10,000 a year. Every year, 10,000 sockeye salmon would I guess swim back into Idaho, just to just 2,500. And the Chinook population has gone from 1.5 million salmon a year to only 5,800 salmon. So the dams have really caused a destruction in the environmental issues. Um, they've pretty much been the main leading cause of the lowering numbers that has been the last 30 years of these salmon. Um, and now today, I mean, you're lucky if you even go out and catch one when it's their time, when it's fishing season in Idaho for these fish. You know, a lot of times now it's just like, okay, well, who knows if there'll even be a salmon run anymore. Like every year, the hope gets lower and lower with these dams still being in place, and it's mainly just because the fish can't make it. I mean, they're already exhausted from swimming against the current the whole way, but now they got to jump 4 more dams when they already have to jump 4 dams in Washington. So it's just kind of a or on the Columbia. Sorry, they already have to jump 4 dams on the Columbia, and now they have to jump another 4 dams just to get into Idaho. I mean, it's kind of a very destructive process, and anyone with I guess, little common sense there could see how destructive it really has been. Um, with all this being said, uh, it's time for action, and it's time for Idaho to take action, and not just Idaho, but the greater Northwest states. So, I mean, Washington and Oregon also need to take a stand because their populations have been dwindling. Um, and truthfully, the real action that has to be had is the removal of the dams. It's hard because the dams do provide things that the natural river cannot, and there will be there will be setbacks to that in general, but to remove the dams will help boost the numbers and help reset the salmon in Idaho. Obviously there's issues with overfishing and commercial fishing, but those are not as precedent as the removal of the dams would be. Um, Without the dams, the fish would stand a chance. Um, there's no time to really lull it over anymore, as the time is now to make a change. Uh, It has recently been reported that the government will look into taking away the dams, but currently no movement has happened. The removal of the dams will cause some destruction and make life harder for some, but to take away years of history and an amazing natural cycle that has fought through all adversity to stay alive is worth the pain that might be a slightly higher electricity bill. It's worth it for Idaho to remove the dams because the fish will survive. The fish will regrow and nature will always find its way and make a course to help boost the population. Um, you know, nobody really knows what will happen if the dams are removed, but it's at least worth a shot. Because without the dams, the fish at least have a chance to survive. I mean, some of them are who make it all the way up to wherever they're going with the dams in there. Imagine how many of those numbers would boost if the dams were removed. The economies of small towns will be done. Um, if the removal of the dams does not happen, it will be too late, and a lot of the fish will die, and the populations will be gone. The economies of these small towns will be done for, and a tradition that has been around for years would be vanished. Um, and truthfully, the worst part is the salmon don't have a choice. The salmon are stuck in the middle of just trying to do what they know, and that is to swim upriver and spawn in the place they were born. It's been bred into these salmon for centuries, and that's never going to change. What can change is how we take a chance on removing these dams and help boost the population again. Because if Idaho loses the salmon, then we lose a part of Idaho. So it's time for Idaho to take a stand and make sure that the salmon never leave this great state. Thank you. Um, hope you enjoyed.